About 5 months ago, I made my first $100,000 in a single month, and let's just say I haven't slowed down since. And if this is your first time ever seeing me or meeting me online, it may come across as though I'm some overnight success living in a fancy apartment downtown, but I can assure you that's far from the truth. I've actually been in the space for about 6 years. I've started and stopped, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 different companies, failed more times than I could possibly even count on. And it wasn't until about 6 or 7 months ago where I really started to take everything to the next level by making a few small tweaks and a few small mindset shifts that I'm going to share with you guys in this video. So the first thing that I began to implement into my life that really began to change everything was not setting to-dos, but to setting goals. And I actually originally learned this from a book called Traction. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend that you pick that up. And before I read this book, we were kind of stuck in that, low multi-six-figure range. We had some good months, some bad months, but we were never able to reach escape velocity, and we were never able to exponentially grow our company so we could get it into that six-figure range. And then we actually flew all of our team out to do like a little mastermind, a little get up, a little workshop in Toronto. And as I was flying to Toronto, I picked up this book, and as I started reading it on the plane, I realized instantly how valuable and how applicable this book was to our current situation. And so I ended up speed reading the book through the entire Toronto flight, which was about 6 hours. And by the end of it, had an entire workshop planned out to execute with my team. And when we got there, we spent about 12 hours putting our heads together and executing on this. And this was a huge catalyst that ended up skyrocketing our growth within the company. And the biggest takeaway that we got was to stop setting to-dos, but instead to set goals. Because let's face it, this is what most of us do when we're, starting our business. Let's say, for example, we want to set up cold email. We have this big to-do list, and we feel like we're busy. We feel like we're productive because we're getting that thing done. We're checking everything off at the end of the day, but at the end of the week, at the end of the month, we're not growing. And it's like, how does this make any sense? I worked every single day. I got everything on my to-do list done. I was productive. I was dialed, but my company isn't growing. Why? And it's because we look at our to-do lists as simply tasks to check off, and we get dopamine hits when that task is checked off. But the problem is just because it's done, that doesn't mean it's good. Let's go back to my example of setting up cold email, right? Well, let's say we have it on our to-do list to set up a cold email campaign. Well, what most people will do, and what I used to do, is we would do the work. We'd watch a couple of YouTube videos. Maybe we'd buy a cold email course. We'd warm up the domains, check. We'd set up Smart Lead, check. We'd launch emails, check. And then we'd go off to try and do something else. But when we started switching that to not just set up cold email, but to set up cold email and optimize it every single day until we're booking 100 appointments a month, and then instead of just after we set up our cold email going to do something else, we would stay working on our cold email. We would continue to optimize. We would continue to research. We would continue to split test, and we would solely focus on this every single day until we reached the goal, not the task, until we reached the goal of setting 100 appointments a month through cold email, right? And with this mindset, instead of having 50, 100 things to do every single month, we cut everything down to just 3 things. Every single person in our company had 3 goals that they had to hit every single month. And they spent all their days not just getting things done, but optimizing things until the goal was achieved. And if we had things come up on our to-do list that weren't directly involved with these 3 things, unless they were like firefighting, important and urgent, we would just get them off our to-do list so we could stay focused on the high leverage activities that were able to take us to the next level. Now, the second thing I learned going from struggling at, 6 figures to achieving these multi-7-figure run rates was that sales will get you to 6 figures, but if you want to get to 7 figures, you have to get good at marketing. So if you're just starting out, there's no doubt that probably the biggest lever that you can pull if you want to make more money is improving your sales skills, right? You're probably doing some form of cold DMs, cold email, cold outreach, cold calling, anything along the forms of that. And if you're going to convert people through mechanisms like that, which is the best low-cost way to get your company off the ground, sales is the big lever to pull if you want to begin turning these appointments into dollars into your bank account. However, over time, we realized 2 main problems. Number one is that in order to close deals, we usually had to have like the founder or somebody really good at sales on the call. And if you have the founder on the call, well, it's hard to scale because I'm taking all the sales call myself. And if we want to get somebody really good, well, because of how big our company was at the time, we couldn't really afford that. And no really good closer wanted to come to work for our company. So the way that we got around that was to begin to study, begin to get really, really good at marketing. Because when you get really good at marketing, two things are going to happen to your company that isn't possible when you're just relying on cold outreach and really good sales skills. Number one is you're going to begin to reach massive audiences at scale. So it's much easier to actually scale your operations as opposed to trying to do more dials or do more outreaches or buy more cold emails. And the second thing, and the most important thing, is that when you get really good at marketing, a lot of times 60, 70, sometimes 80, sometimes even 90% of the selling has already been done before the prospect even shows up to the call. And therefore, you can rely on less talented sales abilities in order to get these deals across the line. And when you can rely on less talented sales abilities, especially when you're a younger company and don't have access to top talent like bigger companies with bigger budgets do, you can bring in average or beginner or newer closers into your company, and they're still able to scale because of how warmed up the prospects are. The third thing, and probably the biggest and most important thing that we did that really changed everything, changed the direction of my business, changed the direction of my completely, even like changed my life. Like literally like 12 months ago, I was like living and working in like my parents' basement, and now we're up here. And none of this would have been possible if I hadn't have started my personal brand. Now, this is one of the biggest regrets and biggest mistakes that I have, that I didn't do this earlier. And I can confidently say if I had have started posting on YouTube, started posting on Instagram, and started building my personal brand 5 or 6 years ago when I actually really started my company, I probably would have made millions of more dollars than I have now. Now, when it comes to starting a personal brand, it can be a very daunting task. It can be a very hard thing to do, but you just have to start. And one of the biggest things that I've learned over the last little while, that the best way to build a personal brand, and this actually comes from Gary Vee, who's an influencer, business influencer that I looked up to a lot as I was in my earlier stages, is to just document, not create. One of the biggest things that blew up my personal brand is last year when I started a brand new agency from scratch, and I literally shared everything that happened. I shared all the ups, I shared all of the downs, I shared all of the struggles that I was going through, the mental struggles with that. And that like 3x my brand in like a single month. And the second thing that I've learned when it comes to building a brand is that 80% as to how well your brand will do and how many views and likes and subscribers and all that dopamine shit that you'll get from your personal brand comes down to how much value are you sharing, right? I've spent months and thousands of dollars trying to figure out how to optimize for click-through rates and create the best thumbnail and what's the best hook and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, that's only like 20% of what's actually going to build your personal brand. At the end of the day, it's pretty simple. If somebody can consume your piece of content and either be entertained or educated in a manner that provides them actionable steps that they can do, they are a better entrepreneur. They are a better person. They are a better individual as a result of watching this piece of content. That is what's going to take your personal brand to the next level. And so those are the three things. Number one, don't set to-dos, but set actual goals. Only focus on a couple of them and work with them every single day until they have been achieved, as opposed to just ticking things off the to-do list and going to the next one. The second thing is sales and outreach will get you to 6 figures, but if you want to get to 7 figures and if you want to do it at scale, you're going to need to begin to tap into marketing. And the third thing is that you should start a personal brand yesterday, because starting a personal brand will make every single part of the process. It'll make sales easier, it'll make marketing easier, it'll make hiring easier, it'll make retaining talent easier, it'll make every single thing that you do easier. And if you don't know what to do, just simply document what you are currently doing and share as much valuable information as possible. Make sure that if somebody watches or consumes your piece of content, they are a better person as a result at the end of it. And so those are the 3 things. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got valuable from it. I hope you got 10x the value in comparison to the time that you invested watching this video. And if you did, I have an offer that's almost too good to be true for you. You can click the link below and apply to join my 100% free community. I have my courses in there for free. I do 2 coaching calls a week, completely for free, where you can ask me any question. And my goal is to get you to your first $1 million run rate in 2024.